Hi all, it's Thomas from SuperStock again, just doing some work on aligning the Hobbywing sensor boards. I've tweaked a few boards around, did some mistakes. This is a new sensor board and figured some things out. So with the sensor boards, Matt Gonzales shared a video regarding moving the sensors around, which was quite helpful, which was something I've been wanting to do for a while. What I've noticed though is that you have to move them in a certain way, and what I mean by this is the gap between each sensor A, B and C, this gap here has to be equal as much as possible between all three sensors, or Hall sensors. So the gap depends on the board and how easily and properly you're measuring it, but it's generally 7.11 to 7.3 something or another. So how do we do that? Well, if we look at this sensor board here, we can see that there are letters on each sensor, A, B and C, and those letters correspond to these numbers here, which is your timing. So I tweaked the boards and made sure the measurement was as equal as possible using verniers, which is very hard to measure because the verniers are not in line and these are very small objects. But this board was quite out of whack and I've managed it to get a little bit closer. Obviously there's a bit more work to do. The phase amps are quite close to each other and the asymmetry is 0.5, and I think I can get it quite a bit closer. You know, this rotor is maybe not the best, but what are you going to do about that? We could go into maybe talking about balancing the rotor with some putty on the one of the ends of the rotors, but you know, that's a bit of a tricky job. We can do that some other day. So as you can see, the boards are about 1 degree off. And so what that means, I've noticed, is that when you move one sensor, the other numbers are affected. So someone who knows more about this sort of thing can tell me if this is right or not, but all three sensors maybe impact each other somehow. So what this might show me is that potentially sensor B, so the way I usually start understanding this is that if the timing is off a little bit and then I go down to amps per phase, if there is one that's higher than the other, I tend to then look at that one correlating with the other one that I'm trying to tweak. So for example, if B is very high, but then I look at the B phase amps and it's lower than the others, and it's probably got to do with maybe B to C. So what I'll do then after that is, obviously this is not the right sensor board, but I will then try my best to measure the gap between A, B and C and try to get it as equal as possible between all three of them. And then after that, I could be wrong here, I haven't tested this yet, but tweaking the angle of the sensor board then can change a little bit more. So I get the gap between all three as much as I can equally. And as you can see, the sensors have like a little white square around them. What I try to do is I get the sensor boards as equal as possible within that white square. And then I might maybe increase the height of the sensor board, of the sensor, of the Hall sensor. So I might move it further outwards, so to sort of this edge here, and just try to find a way to get that gap as equal as possible around all three as I can. So it's a fiddly job. It's not easy to do, but there you go. So give it a go. It's not that hard. What I've been using to warm the sensor board is just a heat gun of some sort, like this one. Any heat gun will do. It doesn't have to be anything specialized, but it does have to be a heat gun. And heat it up and then hold the board with something so you don't burn your fingers and get that gap correct as much as possible. I would start first of all by making sure that all the hall sensors are inside these white squares as best as possible, and then measuring that and then tweaking it to suit. So if you move one board, say to the right or to the left, you then have to move the other ones. So those are my initial findings. I could be wrong, but I've managed to align the boards relatively well with that. I haven't gapped the board yet, as the Matt Gonzales video shows, because, well, that changes everything again. So make a decision whether you want to gap it, gap your board, and then you're going to have to realign everything, because it will make things go out of whack when you do gap this board further out. And it's not that hard. Just be cautious when you are gapping that this connector here is quite close. Well, actually, no, sorry, wrong connector. This one here is very close to the plastic. You have to be very cautious you don't touch the plastic and melt it. If you do, you can cut it out and the switch still fits in, or the wire, should I say, still fits in. But yeah, just be very cautious with that one. The other ones you don't have to be as careful. And that's it. Anyway, I'll keep working on it and I'll post a official video once I've figured it out as best as I can. And I'll do a step by step.